Hey everybody, welcome to TV. Of course, me.
Oh, you may have to step in. I think Ray's having internet trouble.
I think Ray's having internet trouble. If you could just introduce yourself, where you're dialing in from, and what we are going to talk about for the next hour, that would be great. And we'll start with reverse order. So Irene, where are you dialing in from? What are we going to talk about?
Oh, yeah, I'm in the Bay Area, and I'm going to be talking about customer advisory boards, and I wrote a book about it.
Congratulations on your new book. Look forward to learning from you. Dr. Bray, Dr. Cerf, please tell us where you're dialing in from and what we're going to talk about.
Vint, you want to go first?
Happy to. I'm Vint Cerf. I'm not dialing in. I'm actually on a Wi-Fi channel in my Reston, Virginia office. You see in the background, let's see, over, if I do it this way, there's an interplanetary internet element that's, let's see if I can point to, can I get this backwards here? There we are. There is a quick sketch of what the one sort of interplanetary internet element is going to look like. I'm Vice President and Chief Internet Evangelist at Google, and I'm in my Google office at the moment.
Welcome.
Excellent. And I am also coming in from the blast radius of Washington, D.C. on the Virginia side, like Vint. And I love it, Vint, that you said you're not dialing in, because the moment you said that, I had the mental auditory image of a 56K modem doing the handshaking.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, by the way, just to interrupt, David, I recently, just for the hell of it, did a little search, Google search, to find out what did the old dial-up modem sound like.
Yes.
I mean, it is truly amusing to listen to the echo cancellation system and the equalization system trying to judge how good or bad is this circuit. Somebody's twisting a cat's tail and it's going, oh, beep, beep. Oh,
Exactly.
Yes. Right.
That is awesome.
Yes.
We're gonna edit that clip and play it in a loop. That was terrific sound.
Yes, you should do that. This, just a moment's step back into history, and now look where we are today, 800 gigabits a second per optical channel and multiple channels per fiber.
Amazing. Truly amazing.
Exactly. Time flies when you're having fun. Exactly, Vint.
Well, hey everybody.
Having fun. Let's begin.
I'm operating from a skiff in Las Vegas. Anyways, take care, everybody. Let's do the count. Thanks, Al.
All right. 3, 2, 1.
Hello and welcome. Thank you for joining us on DisrupTV. My name is Vala Afshar. I'm the Chief Evangelist at Salesforce and your co-host for the next hour. We welcome you to follow us on X at DisrupTV Show. Send Ray, myself, and our distinguished guests your questions, and we'll try our best to answer them live. It's my pleasure to introduce my co-host, Ray Wang. He's the CEO, founder of Constellation Research. He's the best-selling author of Everybody Wants to Rule the World. I see Ray on TV just about every day, CNBC, Bloomberg, Fox Business. In my humble opinion, he's one of the top futurists to follow on X at RWANG0. Welcome, Ray Wang, to DisrupTV.
Hey, thanks a lot. I'm here with Vala Afshar, the Chief Digital Evangelist for Salesforce. He's also the author of multiple books, including Boundless, A New Mindset for Unlimited Business Success, and a #1 seller on Amazon. Executives around the world pay attention to every one of his inspirational and course, innovative and insightful tweets. And when he's not hosting, keynoting, or leading events at Salesforce, you can hear him speaking on business TV outlets such as Bloomberg and posting insightful analyses on ZDNet. But we've got amazing guests all the time, and it's not about us. Who do we have to kick off today's session?
Ray, amazing may not be quite the word we're looking for. We have legends on our show as our first two guests. Please allow me to introduce both. Vint Cerf is Vice President and Chief Internet Evangelist for Google. Vint contributes to global policy development and continued spread of the Internet. Widely known as one of the fathers of the Internet, Vint is the co-designer of the TCP/IP protocols and the architecture of the Internet. In December 1997, President Clinton presented the U.S. National Medal of Technology to Vint and his colleagues Robert Kahn for founding and development of the Internet. We don't often have guests on the show where what they've created is now used by nearly 5.6 billion people around the globe. Vint has served in executive positions at MCI, Corporate for National Research Initiatives, and the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, and at the faculty of Stanford University. While at MCI, Vint led the effort to develop and deploy MCI Mail, the first commercial email service that was connected to the Internet. In 2005, Vint left MCI to become Vice President and Chief Internet Evangelist at Google 20 years ago. He has served as chairman of the board for Internet Corporation for Assigned Names and Numbers, ICANN, from 2000 to 2007, and has been visiting scientist at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory since 1998. Vint is a recipient of numerous awards. By the way, I'm cutting your bio short because we only have an hour. And numerous awards, including U.S. Presidential Medal of Freedom, U.S. National Medal of Technology, Queen Elizabeth Prize for Engineering, the AICM Turing Award, which is the highest honor in computer science, and many more, 29 honorary degrees. Welcome, Vint, to DisrupTV.
Thank you very much.
It's truly an honor to have you. Dr. David Bray, who's the first ballot Hall of Fame inductee to DisrupTV. If this was Saturday Night Live, I think he would have his jacket with the number 30 on it. Is Distinguished Fellow and Chair of the Accelerator and Alfred Lee Loomis Innovation Council at the nonpartisan Henry L. Stimson Center. David is principal at Lead Do Adapt Ventures and also serves as executive director for the People-Centered Internet Coalition, chaired by Internet's co-originator, Vint Cerf. Business Insider named David one of the top 24 Americans who are changing the world under 40, and he was named Young Global Leader by the World Economic Forum. Welcome back, David, to DisrupTV.
Oh, honored, Vala and Ray, and always great to be here with you, especially with Vint. And I would say the one thing I would say about Vint that again, you were cutting his bio short, he is one of the most generous people that I know. And I think that's actually something that is worth saying because and in addition to being smart, he's incredibly kind.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I would second that. I had the opportunity to attend a birthday party with Vint at the Computer Science Museum here in Mountain View, and all I could say was it's just amazing, the accomplishments. And when we go back and we look back 56 years after the first 4 nodes of ARPANET were set up, and you can remind us where the first 4 nodes were. Where do you think the future of the internet is headed, especially in this age of AI and in terms of this world of deglobalization? So,
well, questions like that, Ray, are kind of like the final exam in the physics class, or they describe the universe in 25 words or less. Give 3 examples, right? So, first of all, we are increasing our capacity in the internet world to move data around. A standard data rate speed or transmission speed now on the optical fibers is 400 gigabits a second per optical channel. It's soon going to 800 gigabits a second. And it's so hard to imagine how could we possibly need to send stuff at that speed and with that much capacity. But with 5.6 billion people growing to 8 billion, we do need that capacity, especially to do what we're doing right this moment, which is moving video back and forth. So higher speeds, more accessible systems, because we have access now to Starlink and other low Earth orbiting satellite systems, massive expansion of the subsea cable system, which we and others are investing in. And of course, we're going to go off planet. I've been working since '98, as was implied at the Jet Propulsion Lab, on the development of an interplanetary internet backbone. And in fact, just behind me, On the screen there is a little sketch of a moon and Earth-based small-scale interplanetary test system that we hope to have up and running probably in the next year or so. We're going off planet in addition to everything else. You mentioned AI, which of course is topic A these days, and there's no doubt in my mind that these are becoming increasingly powerful tools for accelerating our ability to do things, including writing software, which I find thoroughly amazing. I was told that something like 25% of the software we produce at Google is now being generated through the use of AI-based tools. And of course, I hope everybody who's doing it will look very carefully at the software that came out the other end before they actually deploy it to make sure that it actually works as advertised. But these tools are making people much more capable of processing large amounts of information and getting access to content that they might otherwise not be able to get to because it might be in a language that they don't speak. And so translation is becoming quite commonplace and quite high quality, to say nothing of improving matters for people with disabilities by making the content accessible through voice interaction, for example, as opposed to clicking on mice and or touching touch-sensitive screens. So we're entering into a period of abundance of computing and communication capability that will, I think, enable some amazing accomplishments over time. It's hard to believe that so much has happened over the past 50 years, and there's so much more to go.
It's amazing. It's also amazing to speak to someone who invented a capability that 68% of humanity, 5.6 billion people using the internet. In 2024, we saw, I believe I read 136 million new users. So every year we're adding hundreds of millions of new users to the internet. Somewhere I read it was maybe a chemistry set when you were 10 years old that gave you this unquenchable thirst for mathematics and science and building. So you are a lifelong learner. And I imagine, whether it's undergraduate studies at Stanford or your doctorate work at UCLA or your work at DARPA, I'm just curious, like leadership moments, people that influenced you, parents, mentors, teachers, colleagues, how do you achieve the level of greatness that you've achieved when you reflect back on your illustrious career? Are there moments you can share with us?
Well, I'm happy to. First of all, let's get rid of the greatness part. I mean, I've been lucked out. Lesson number one, if you want to do anything big, get help. So when I was chairman of the PCI, I turned to David Bray and said, David, I need help. And he came and helped. So that's lesson number one is get help. Lesson number two is make sure you learn how to sell your ideas to other people so they want to help you do what you want to do. That's an important skill to keep in mind. I have had the benefit of mentors and very close friends who have kindled my curiosity and have continued to stimulate that curiosity. A lot of people will tell you that getting old is inescapable, but growing up is optional. So I hope I never grow up. I want to stay the same curious person I was when I was 10 years old. My best friend across the street and I took our chemistry set. It was a Gilbert chemistry set with stuff in it that you would never get today. I mean, powdered magnesium and potassium permanganate, which is hypergolic when you mix it with other substances. But we even made nitroglycerin, which was pretty stupid. Fortunately, we didn't blow ourselves up. But this curiosity about how things work has been with me forever. And as an engineer, of course, I'm always curious about how to make some new thing work or how to figure out what might go wrong and try to prevent that from happening. So for me, mentors like Bob Kahn, with whom I did the original internet design, or Steve Crocker, my best friend since high school, and so many others, have helped to keep my curiosity bump vibrating and have helped to feed my interests for now 80 plus years.
Stunning. And congratulations on
Amazing.
20 years at
Now,
Google.
David, you did.
What I am what I'm most proud of is that they hired me at Google when I was 62.
Amazing.
Impressive.
That's
You made it. David, you and Vint, as well as several others, have advocated for a more people-centered internet. I've been involved with you guys for years on that. Why do you think this matters? And how are companies as well as communities helping to achieve more people-centered approaches to tech, especially in this bizarre era we're living in?
Well, so first, thank you, Ray, for all that you've done to help advance the cause of the People-Centered Internet Coalition, and of course, the Vint and Mei Lin and many people, Lynn Wells, Marcy Harris. I mean, it's a movement, and I think when Vint gave the signal back in 2017 to try and help with figuring this out and navigate, I think it was clear even then we were starting to see maybe fragmentation of different communities. And Vint and I have had many great discussions, and I think he probably has some perspectives on this as well, that the good news is the internet, like never before, allows us to connect with people around the world, access to information, and that's a good thing. And then at the same time, much like other technologies in the past, including radio and including television, there are going to be some that use it either for propaganda purposes or for creating communities in which people all think the same thing and you're not exposed to different ideas. And I can remember it was around 2018, 2019. I was in Hungary and Poland, and I met with people from both sides of the political aisle in Poland and Hungary. And they said, the only reason why we're meeting right now with each other is because you're here. Wow. But the moment you leave, we're going to go back to our own news sources. We're going to go back to our own outlets, and we're not going to hang out. And they could identify that problem, but they weren't doing anything to fix it. And so to me, I think we're now in this case where the good news is we can connect with anybody. I think we need to revive almost the equivalent of electronic pen pals. We almost need to actually allow, maybe now with AI, we can allow someone to walk a mile in someone else's shoes and experience that. Because up until now, your neighbors were in your physical environment, and now your neighbors are both your physical environment, but also online. And if we're not careful, we're going to lose the very thing that makes free societies so valuable, which is that you are exposed to different ideas that you may disagree with, and it's okay to disagree with it. It's okay to not have the same opinion. That's what makes us strong. So I know I've got a 7-year-old, and I do want to give a shout out to Vint because he was there when we got the news that we were going to adopt him, and so I sort of see Vint as the as like a godparent. But I want to see not just for him, but I want to see for all the next generation. I think we need to actually go, and it's not a technological issue. It really is a human biology issue, which is we just need to understand better how do you bring people together, even if it means you're going to sometimes have to be exposed to views that you disagree with, but that's okay.
So just if I could riff a little bit on what David is saying, as in all situations like this, there's a flip side. We had always hoped, I had certainly hoped that the internet would allow like-minded people to discover each other and have common interests, for example. And indeed they did, especially as the World Wide Web blossomed in the 1990s and turned into the dot boom period. However, like-minded people doesn't necessarily mean people who have your best interest in mind. And so, unfortunately, this same infrastructure has created opportunities for people to gather to do not so to do harmful things. And so, as the decades have gone by since this system was first introduced, I have been thinking more and more about accountability. And responsibility and ethics and things along those lines. These are not things that the technology can solve. These are things that only social constructs, social norms, maybe laws and law enforcement can solve. And I think David's point about people-centeredness is exactly that we need to use people-centered methods in order to establish social norms that make this online environment a safer place to be.
It seems we also need to strongly consider people-centered approach when we talk about artificial intelligence. I was in, I remember in 1993, with using Mosaic and Netscape, and then the web was made available, and I didn't realize that was, perhaps the most important technology of my lifetime until now. With predictive, generative, agentic, physical AI. David, question to you, and then we can ask, I'd love to hear Vint, and perhaps even Ray, who is the Vint Cerf of AI? Who's the person that's going to create a protocol that scaled the internet, where now 70% of humanity is using it? Is there a company or an individual that is the Vint Cerf of AI? Someone who's going to help?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, again, and recognizing, what Vint and Bob Kahn and team did was the protocol that scaled the internet. I think the thing with AI is it's been decades coming, and I don't even necessarily know if we're at the ultimate stage of AI. Even Ray and I actually just came out with an article yesterday in which we're talking about, in some respects, deep learning is good for some things. And, Vint was talking about how it can actually be really good if you want to help write code. It can help with language translation and things like that. But if you're in a field in which the present and future is different than the past, you really do not want to use deep learning for that purpose, because deep learning is always going to only be as good as the past training sets. And so there are other things, active inference, Bayesian methods, and things like that. And so I would say with AI, it's not going to be one person. I actually think it's going to be, again, there's going to be people that contribute to the field, but it's going to be much more like how you look at how we came to understand human DNA and genomics. You're going to have a Watson and Crick, but you're going to have other people along the way too, I think. Now, that said, what I think we haven't done is we need to go to communities and say, how do you want to use this combination of AI and internet for the future of work? I think actually right now, and Ray was referencing a little bit about the deglobalization that's happening around us, that's happening as a result because we didn't go back to the local level and say, what do you want the future of work to look like in your community? Because different communities are going to have different answers, and that's okay. What do you want the future of education to look like? What do you want to be like the new social contract? And so if anything, I hope over the next 5 to 10 years, while we're going to have technology pioneers, I hope we also have people that understand the technology, but also get back to the local level and say, okay, much like when the printing press came out, the world changed. The world's changing again. Let's figure out. And again, when the printing press came out, it's worth knowing for the first 200 years, there were pundits that said the world was ending. And in some respects, the world did end as we know it, but I don't think any of us want to go back to the 1300s all over again. So in some respects, this is a new rebirth of sorts, but it now means we've got to do the harder work, which is the human work of societies and companies and communities.
So my takeaway is that Vint is a unicorn, one of a kind. We're not going to see another person.
Now you're making him blush.
That's really not fair. First of all, it's just not Bob Kahn and me. I mean, we stood on the shoulders of others who came up with the idea of packet switching. There are literally millions of people who have contributed to and continue to contribute either to the evolution or the operation of the internet. It's a gigantic and global collaboration. And so I don't think that it's a good meme to think that any one person should be elevated at all. It's true that I was around at the very early stages of all this. I know all of the people from the 1960s on, but that doesn't mean that I'm responsible for all of the successes, or for that matter, all of the harmful behaviors that we encounter. I refuse to take credit or blame for that. I did want to make an observation, though, about the AI business. David correctly said that this has been a decades-long evolution. Artificial intelligence, the term, was introduced in Dartmouth University in 1956 by John McCarthy, if I'm remembering right.
That's right.
He was at MIT at the time. He went to Stanford, and I was there at Stanford when he got there in 1961 and had the benefit of some exposure to his thinking. The Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, which funded the internet and funded its predecessor, ARPANET, was paying for artificial intelligence research in the 1960s and 70s. And it built the network to connect the universities that were doing the AI research of the time. And so there is an array of people who have been responsible for advances in this. If you look at the Turing Awards and the IEEE Awards, you'll find people who have gotten them who have contributed to artificial intelligence. So there's a whole bunch of those. And there have been several phases. We're in the middle of the third wave, so to speak, of artificial intelligence with multi-layer neural networks and large language models. But as David points out, we may still be in the early stages of these things. We're just beginning to discover their capabilities and their foibles. And frankly, it's a very exciting time to be around. The idea that we can actually be living through yet another major technological transformation is really cool.
I don't know.
Absolutely. And
Speaking about
to Vint's
collaboration.
point, oh, Ray, are you there? Can we hear you?
Yeah, I was going to say, speaking about collaboration, bringing you two together. So, okay.
Oh no!
Collaboration between you two at the time. How is that? So,
Ray,
Ray, unfortunately, your internet connection of all days.
I know. This is the irony, the delicious irony here.
If we could fly Vint out to you, we could.
I think what he was. The question was the collaboration that you both have had. Can you speak to moments that come to mind as you've been? And by the way, I would have loved to have been in the room, Dr. Bray, when you get a call from Vint saying, I need you to collaborate and join the people in internet.
We've collaborated. I mean, we knew each other, I think, starting in 2010 or so.
Yeah.
We met in some interesting environments. And so here, I would say there's a couple of memories I have. One, I think, Vint, you told a story once of a champagne bottle over a server when something got launched, which I could just had this mental image of, like, instead of launching a ship, they're doing a champagne bottle over a server. Another thing I would say, I remember, in addition to the fact that we were both going to be speaking on a panel when my wife and I found the news about becoming adoptive parents, he did come to actually meet with my son later. And it was on a Saturday around, morning. And, I'm in blue jeans and, a shirt and t-shirt. And of course, Vint shows up in a 3-piece suit. And so but I have this image of, again, Vint in a 3-piece suit playing with at the time he was a toddler. And that was just, again, he's very generous. The last thing I would say is there was once an event that we got asked to host. I think it was like President's Innovation Fellows or something like that. And I was so excited because it was going to be black tie. And I was like, finally, I get to wear a tuxedo on stage with Vint. And what does Vint do? Instead of showing up in a tuxedo, he's doing an Asian tuxedo of all things. So it's always the snappy dresser.
Yes.
Just a little story about that. What I was wearing was a formal Indian tunic. It's black. It looks a little military. It's very sleek, and it packs more easily than a typical black tie. And so I was getting an honorary degree at Keio University some years ago, and I decided I would upgrade to this Asian black Indian tunic to show them respect for the degree that they were conferring on me. And so I gave a talk. And someone came up afterwards and said, well, thank you. That was a very nice talk. By the way, why are you wearing a Japanese high school student's uniform? And, I'm sitting, it's an Asian tunic, you idiot. So sometimes it gets you in trouble. David was very kind in his reminiscences. By the way, it wasn't a champagne bottle. It was actually a plastic bottle full of glitter that we shattered over a Cisco router to launch SurfNet out at General Atomics in San Diego in something like I don't remember 1989, I think, is when that got launched.
There you go.
The thing that David, this both of you, Vala and Ray, that you can call on David, and he's like the best chatbot you've ever met because he has an enormous wealth of experience and information, and he's able to articulate it extremely well, as you have seen so far in this show. And that's always been a source of great help for me, because I know if I need somebody to explain something in understandable terms, I can almost always count on David to come up with an analogy, for example, that will help people understand a complex system in simple enough terms to appreciate what it's doing. So David's very good at that. And of course, you all know that he tries very hard to be as apolitical as possible, and also to bring influence to discussions that stay on a rational plane as opposed to banging each other over the heads.
That is a superpower you have, Dr. Bray, with grace.
It means I'm shot at occasionally, but if that's the only thing that I have to do for that, then I'm okay to be metaphorically shot at. That's fine.
Well, hopefully you guys can hear me. Can you hear me okay now?
Yes.
So,
Yes.
I'll get my question in while the packets are still hot. As we move from the age of AI to the age of the internet to the age of the AI, what guardrails should we think about for tech? So lots of lessons learned from the internet, and guardrails that find the right balance between freedom of expression and our ability to, not get into controlling dictatorships, to risk to young people, and mental health. Like, these are all happening at the same time. Any suggestions? Because as we enter this age of internet, it's just as big as the age of AI, and all that stuff in between was kind of made up marketing by all the people that wanted to create new eras. I mean, this is real. So what should we be thinking about?
David, if I could just make a couple of thoughts. David alluded to something earlier, and I want to emphasize and highlight it. When we introduce technology, we should bring with us sociologists and psychologists and anthropologists to help us understand the impact of the technology on the societies that are ingesting it. We didn't really do that as the internet blossomed and exploded. And today we really seriously need to do that, because the technology we're now introducing, artificial intelligences, if I can use that term, are beguilingly human, or at least beguilingly articulate. They interact with us as if they were a person. They are often better spoken than a lot of our friends. And the sheer elegance of the expression lends weight to what these bots have to say, even when they're wrong. And more than once you've heard somebody say they speak so well, even when they're wrong. They're so confident. So we really need to help people understand better how much to accept and what to reject. This is called critical thinking. And we need to assist that capacity. We need to provide provenance of the information that the artificial intelligences are using to articulate and to respond to our prompts and our requests. There's just a lot of work to be done here that is well beyond purely technical, that will help us make use of these tools in a safe way. But there is a significant distance to go before I think I will be comfortable that we have done the job that the general population expects us to do.
Awesome.
If I could build on what Vint said, and I'll share a story that, Vint was tremendously supportive when this happened. So as you know, I spent 4 years at the Federal Communications Commission, and we succeeded in moving everything to public cloud and saving the taxpayers millions of dollars. What we couldn't say at the time is we also got systems that had APTs. We had at least 2 advanced persistent threats off those systems, so we succeeded. Now, in a high-profile proceeding, it is worth knowing that usually in public commenting, less than 1% of government agencies get more than 10,000 comments over 120 days. We were seeing 7,000, 8,000 comments a minute at 4 a.m., 5 a.m., 6 a.m.
Yes.
So in 2 minutes, we were seeing the equivalent of what most government agencies even ever got to. Now, we had asked if we could use CAPTCHA. They said, no, you can't use CAPTCHA because if someone can't see and can't hear, they won't be able to file. I said, could I use invisible means like reCAPTCHA? They said, nope, that looks like surveillance. And then finally, I said, could I block obvious spam, like 100 comments a minute from the same IP address? And they said, no, because one of those 100 comments might be real. So then when we had this flood and this torrent of comments, they said, is this a denial of service? And I said, well, not at the network layer. Everything's fine. Nothing's been compromised. But essentially, given the rules of engagement, what you gave me, at the application layer, we are. Now, we're still up 99.4% of the time. Well, did not know at the time, but there may have been some people that may have been intentionally creating these comments. I mean, we could see it, but again, that's always been the case, whether it was postcards in the past, whether it was mimeographs, whether it was faxes. I mean, people do that. But they said, where's your evidence? And I said, patterns of life. And they said, that's not forensics. I said, I don't think I need forensics. It's pretty clear patterns of life. They said, when do you report it to law enforcement? I was like, no laws got broken. But 4 years later, and of course, by that time, the news bubble moved on, we discovered of the 23 million comments we got, and again, less than 1% usually get 10,000 comments. 18 million were politically manufactured, 9 million from one side of the aisle, 9 million from the other side of the aisle, and that was 2017. So to Vint's point, with generative AI, we have created things that are going to make it even more difficult. It's not just text anymore. It's audio, it's images, it's video.
Yeah.
Right now I assume that really is Vint at the other end, but the technology is such that it could be Vint decided to send his AI to talk to us today. Or maybe that's Ray. Maybe that's why Ray's
We're definitely not sure if real Ray is here. So.
If he starts looking like Max Headroom, then I get confused. So I raise that though, because I think the solution at the end of the day, as Vint was saying, is not tech. The solution is both getting other folks that can help with understanding human nature. But the other thing we need to do is we've got to create spaces where people can come in and actually have agency in shaping the future themselves. I think if anything, what we're seeing again with the anxiety of 2025 and 2026 is a lot of people have been left out of that conversation, or they felt like they weren't involved. And so they, things were done to them as opposed to with them. And the only way you get through this, even if you have disagreements and even if you have different paths to be charted, that's okay, is you've got to actually find a way to give people agency back. And so I hope, if anything, we find tech that gives people agency and lets them choose what they want to do. While at the same time, it's got to be almost like the 21st century golden rule, which is do unto others as you would have them do unto you. We need to make sure that they don't transgress on other people's liberties and freedoms and dignity.
So there, if you don't mind, I'd like to pursue this just a little bit further, because I think David is spot on here. In a sense, it's time for us to revisit the social contract. And when we, in the normal original formulation of that, we basically give up certain abilities in exchange for living in a safe and secure society. And we are losing the safety and the security to these powerful tools that can and are being abused. So accountability has to go along with agency. It probably means that anonymity is not always our friend here, because in order to hold parties accountable, you have to know who they are and where they are, because you have to know in what jurisdiction their behaviors can be dealt with. And that translates into international agreements. Some of you, I'm sure, are well aware that there's a recent framework for international agreement called the Global Digital Compact, speaking to the use and abuse of digital technologies in international and domestic affairs. So we have a long ways to go to sort our way through how to make this work better for everybody. David, I'm sure you've heard of my fantasy that before you're allowed to get the keys to the car, you have to go through a training course and then demonstrate you learned what the rules of the road are, that you know how to manage the car, and that's your driver's license test. Maybe there should be an internet driver's license, and you have to learn about the internet. You have to learn about how to be safe there, how to do safe networking, how to know what to anticipate, just like they tell you in the car, that everyone else on the road is crazy except you. Yes. So you should take that into account when you're driving. I don't literally think you have to be issued a license to use the internet, but I think people should be exposed to the knowledge that they need in order to use the tool safely and effectively.
I think you hit the nail on the head, Vint. And just so you know, when my son's a little bit older, because right now he has a tablet, but it doesn't connect to the internet at the moment because he's too young. When he's a little bit older, I plan to do something like that, including asking him, what do you do? Someone just sent you something that got you angry. What do you do? If his response is, I immediately fire back with more vitriol, I'm like, no. Because you say, maybe I'm feeling emotions that I shouldn't be, that anger begets more anger. But I agree with you. I think that there's a role, whether it's from teachers or from parents, if we can at least help the next generation understand, you have great power and great tools. Make sure you're using them for benevolent ends as opposed to the alternatives.
Your son is in good hands.
Yeah, David, thank you so much. Thank you for the insights. We should have spent more time with you. We always never have enough. So we're with Vint Cerf, VP and Chief Internet Evangelist, and of course, one of the fathers of the internet, Dr. David Bray, Distinguished Fellow Stimson Center, and of course, Business Executives for National Security, more important. So follow them on LinkedIn and other areas. And thank you so much for being on the show. And we hope to catch up soon. So
thank you, Vala. Thank you, Ray.
Thank you for now. Cheers. 5.6 billion people leveraging technology invented by Mr. Cerf. Okay, this is the cleanup hitter spot where we bring a guest and she hits a grand slam and just drops wisdom nuggets to enlighten all of us.
Right.
Irene Yam, author of Build a World-Class Customer Advisory Board. What company can't benefit from a world-class CAB? How to create deeper relationships and validate strategies. Irene is recognized customer advisory board expert after working for 24 years in technology startups and fast-growing companies like Riverbed, EMC, WorkSpot, RingCentral. What came naturally to Irene was building human connections between customers and executives during customer advisory board meetings. Irene now runs her own CAB consulting company. To learn more, you can visit ireneyam.com. Welcome, Irene, to DisrupTV.
Oh, thank you. This has been a dream to be a part of this. Thank you.
It's
so
a dream for us to be
here.
able to learn from people like yourself. Thank you for being here.
Great.
We're so excited to have you here. And, you know, one of the things that we've all been in product companies, we all know how important it is to get to customers. Yes. And the customer advisory board, it's not a new concept, but not a lot of people have done it well. And you're at the forefront of actually putting CABs together. And these customer advisory boards, talk about what are customer advisory boards, what are not, because there's a lot of fake customer advisory boards that are really there as selling tools instead of actually feedback tools.
Yes.
And really over your 20 years with technology startups and established companies, talk more about this CAB movement that's out there.
Oh, thank you. Well, so a CAB is a 1 to 2 day offsite where executives think about which customers that they want in the room with them for about those 1 or 2 days to vet ideas, to collaborate, to whiteboard, and also get to learn a little bit more about their business. That's the ideal way, not the sales way. And then the customers get a lot of value because they're learning and listening what the exec team is thinking, how they're thinking ahead, and they can ask questions right then and there, right? And also provide feedback for strategies.
How do you select CAB members? What should is it based on the type of product or service? Is it the spend history and or the strategic alliances that they may be able to flourish? How do you pick?
That's a good point, Vala. So first we should pick an executive sponsor. So that could be the CEO, the COO, or CPO, the Chief Product Officer. So let's think the Chief Product Officer may want to have people that are executives like CISOs or CIOs at the event, but then they may want to have some super users or super admins, not just big, the biggest customers. So there is a lot of, let's get our top 10 customers in a room. But that's a blinder. You don't get to see and talk to other people. So try to have a mix. But you have to also interview them and talk to them and ask them if they will really engage and give us feedback. And I also give out homework. I ask the executives that come and serve on our board to do homework. And people are like, why do that? And I'm like, because they got to have the skin in the game. And I ask them, what would you like out of the CAB? Can you tell us, do you have any questions? Can we take that back to our executive team? Maybe we have to change the agenda.
And just a quick follow-up. What's the ideal duration to be a member of a CAB? Is it 1 year?
It depends how fast. Okay. It depends how fast you want to go, right? So if you want to be in product, you could change it every 6 months.
Okay.
Or you can make it for 1 year. So average is 1 year.
Average is 1 year. And if there's someone who's like an awesome CAB member, it's your prerogative. If you want to keep them, you can. Is that
yes. And but you can always keep them in perpetuity. You can have an alumni.
Sure.
So you can have an alumni CAB, which is even better because they served. And then every 6 months we'll do a CAB alumni Zoom meeting or host a local event.
Oh, very cool.
Wow. And now when you think about the makeup of the CAB, I mean, is it for large companies? Is it for small companies? Have you seen it more successul, sponsored by, is it better by the product organization? Or is it better by sales? Or is it better by customer success? Are you seeing any distinct patterns, or is it really just the individuals that are behind it?
I think it's really behind the leader. But I do really enjoy having the COO involved because I think that they bring much more of an understanding. And we could have better breakouts. So we could have a support breakout, or we could have CSM breakout where other groups talk and then we facilitate what was learned. So I think that's really important. The one for me is you could do this in small all the way to large. It's how you do it. You got to be respectful of customers. You have to be thoughtful and empathetic. This is a lot of work. You must prepare. You don't just show up and go, oh yeah, I've been doing these slides. I'm just gonna. I've had somebody. They thought they knew their slides, and someone would ask a question, and they were fumbling to find their slides. Like, throw the slides away and have a conversation.
Yes.
Make sure you have a CAB mission. Tell that to your client, your customer first, so they know they're on board with your vision of the mission. Sorry.
So what are these 5 principles of successful cabs? Because
I was just telling you about those. Yes. So be respectful of time, be thoughtful, empathetic, prepare, follow the CAB mission. And the last but not least is this is something that's really hard for us in general. Take action and follow up. So I guess when I was growing up running cabs, an executive pulled me aside and said, I really want to talk to that executive over there, the chief product officer. I want to have this idea, right? So they had a meeting, and then I called up Randy, a week later. I said, Randy, give me feedback, the real feedback, not the survey feedback. He's like, I'm really sad that I didn't get a phone call back. He said he'd call me back. And I said, I'm really sorry. So slap him or text him, what's going on, right? And then we make that phone call happen. So if the executives can't do it, have someone like me, a CAB concierge, to make sure that we're following the loop. And that's so important. You could say we're not building that. They would rather hear we're not building that than
take it off the table, take it off the roadmap, say it's not coming for the next 2 to 3 years.
They understand. I mean, right.
I just recently watched a video where somebody asked Steve Jobs about Apple's strategy in terms of gaining market share. And Steve said, that's not our goal. Our goal is to build products and services that we're proud to sell. It's build products and services that we love. If you had to ultimately define one critical mission of having a CAB, is it so that you have an outside-in methodology of building something that you love and you're proud of, or are there other competing interests, healthy interests in terms of the mission of a CAB?
Well, I think there's also competition.
Okay, competitive landscape, understanding
right, really understanding, right? And then there might be, like, for example, I was back in the day when I was at Riverbed, Jerry, our CEO, had asked to be seated near Latin American customers that had offices in Latin America. And I was like, why, Jerry? And so, but later on, we opened up offices in Brazil and Mexico. What happened is, Jerry contacted the CAB members who were here in the US. He went down to Latin America. He followed up and he said, oh, could I meet the local person in Mexico City? Can I meet them in Sao Paulo? He met with them. They broke bread. They also did a Zoom or webinar. I think it was WebEx at the time.
Yeah, probably.
And he said, we need your help. We're building up our business. Will you help us? And the regional IT guy was like, wow, yeah, sure. I've never had a visit from a CEO from a tech company. Yeah, I'll help. And that's what helped us as a community at Riverbed. We blossomed that way because we were asking for help from our CAB members to share their story.
So connections.
You got the executive support, right? That's the big
Exactly. Well, Jerry flew down there. He was right there.
I'm going to put Ray on the spot. Does Constellation Research have a customer advisory board?
We informally do, but we don't have a formal program. We probably should, and I think that's a great point. I mean, when you think about what's required for a CAB,
Right.
we do it informally, but we haven't formalized it, and we always go to about 10 to 20 customers that we always look for feedback. But it's very informal. But we do actually for our vendor clients. We have our analyst relations experience, where we do bring in 20 to 30 people to share with us their feedback of what's happening in the industry. So we definitely do. Actually, we do it. We just I don't know. We probably
You
forgot
didn't
that.
call it that. You call it something else.
We didn't call it a cab.
You
Hey,
probably
we're
call it something else, but it sounds
We're going
exactly
after
what, yeah, you convene people and get feedback in terms of how
We
you
get
can
their
deliver
feedback.
better
And
product.
I'll give you an example. Like one of the things we did was people wanted a tighter, shorter report format. And we had a meeting in July and we rolled out a new product in September because of the feedback.
Wow.
Great.
Okay.
Wow,
All right.
that's
Well
awesome.
done. So Irene, I have two girls in college, two different institutions,
Oh.
both known for being great business schools,
Okay.
top ranked business schools.
Wow.
If I asked my girls, tell me what's a customer advisory board, what's the likelihood that they would be able to answer adequately?
Well, first of all, I don't even think you have two college kids but looking good there.
We all have
But
to work.
I have to say,
I wear black and it's tight. Yeah. Tight.
okay. So the answer is actually no. They kind of drop it. They kind of say, "Oh, I'll have a CAB, a customer advisory board," and then move on. So I know it's mentioned in Haas, but it's not taught.
Okay.
And that's something I was thinking of trying to see if I could teach like an entrepreneur class or have some case studies for them to understand, because I think the problem that we have here is that we take all our data and we don't pick up the phone and talk to our customers. But not only that, when you bring them all together, you're all vibing off each other. You're learning, you're exchanging. And then that context is like your trust. You're building that trust. And then after that, like I'm sure Ray and Vala, you probably get on the call and go, "Hey, I got to ask you a question for 5 minutes." You don't have to go all the context and get the warm vibes. You have that trust. All right. You can just call them and say, "I need help. I'm not sure if we should do this or that." And they're like, "Well, I think," and they'll be honest with you because they're on your advisory. That's what you want in the whole long term of your relationship with the customer, not short term. This is not a fancy dinner and then that's it, or Napa. No, this is like you could do it at a Top Golf. Doesn't matter. I could have it here in my kitchen. This is what's important: is prepare, listen to your customers. Don't have 100 slides. Don't do show and tell.
Those are bad ones. We should talk more about the bad experiences.
Oh, bad one. I got you. I got you one. Okay.
But hold on real quick. So
Okay.
the convening is the important part, right? The convening
Yeah.
and the conversation,
Yeah.
right? That
Yeah.
seems like what you're doing, and you're doing it with what you call advocates, right?
Yeah.
And it's,
Oh, you
do you ever
hope that
do it with
they will turn
prospects?
into advocates.
Do you ever do it with prospects? That's not a customer advisory board, I guess, if you bring prospects.
Actually, so I do actually add usually one or two prospects in. They have to be closely vetted. The reason why is that if you're kind of like a malnourished or seeking startup, needing to show revenue, okay, put them in. And so the one that I ran last fall, within I think he just shook his hand, the VP, and then in 30 days they signed.
So it's a great conversion.
Yes.
A prospect immersed in a very healthy, radically transparent CAB session where there's deep engagement is likely to say, okay, this is a company I want to partner with, do business with.
Well, we also talked about the things that weren't pretty of the product. So they really got an understanding, and they understood, like, here's a senior person that's been, they rolled it out at a big bank for a whole year. This is what happened. To, hey, this is a new company that's just rolling it out. We're having some issues with this and that. Can we get some more help? This was good. This helped. It's reality.
Irene, how do you set executives up for hearing that kind of honest feedback?
Mm-hmm.
Because so many executives in the tech world like to think everything is pretty. They don't like to hear what's not going well. We live in a passive aggressive culture here in Silicon Valley, so no one's ever like direct, like, your product sucks. I mean, like it's just, it doesn't always happen like that.
Yeah.
So how do you prep them for that kind of experience?
Yeah, I guess my cabs are like really honest, but I think for the people that are a little shy or people who just don't want to hear it, I just say, you know what? Just be an active listener. Just listen. Mm-hmm. You're not going to get up. And actually, it's even better that as a leader, you're sitting back. This is not all leaders, right? But let the executive, let the CEO or founder say less. Sit back. That's confidence. That shows your other team.
Right?
That's right. And then what they can do is say, I'd like to talk to this person. I've had that. Someone tap on my, oh, could I talk to that person? And I go, we'll have a private meeting for you. right? And that works. And then they want to ask, could we dive a little deeper? Why was that? Why were you upset with CSMs? Why were you upset with our service? I'd like to learn more. And I think for those executives that have a hard time saying something in a room, that's a better way of engaging one-on-one.
My last question to you: any blind spots you had that were removed as you wrote the book, as you're deeply researching considered practice, best practice? You're talking to companies that have done it well, companies that have had horror shows that they were kind enough to share with you. Any aha moments for you where you're like, wow, this through the process of writing the book, I discovered some new wisdom I can share with my readers?
Well, actually, right before COVID, I ran a virtual customer advisory board. And it was a very uncomfortable thing because people were not, as much as you want to get them prepped. And they only wanted a customer advisory board online, and they only wanted they wanted 3 hours or something like that. And I was like, no, we're going down to 90 minutes. So from talking to my other peers and also from my learning mistake and not pulling back and saying, no, we're going to 90 minutes and doing a series, I was able to write that. And I think that was ready for the pandemic, because I think also now everyone's used to saying, well, let's not meet. Let's just meet online. Let's just have a cab online, which is fine. But let's have a 3 hour. You can't have a 3 hour cab. You have to have a series. So that's extra work, but that's virtual for you.
3 hours is hard.
Yeah,
but if you make it fun, it can go by really quickly. So.
Yeah.
Just like this show. Oh my God, we're running out of time again.
Can I tell the bad story, or not the horror?
Yeah, please.
I want to hear more about that.
Because people want to know. And that's in the book. Sorry, that's in the book. So we decided that we wanted to launch this data center product. And we never had talked to Fortune 500 customers. And so they said, okay, go down there and start a cab. I was like, in 4 weeks time, like, yeah. And the sales reps, luckily they got us some people. We did it just outside the doors of a Gartner event. And so I had, snacks and treats, because I know that people are going to be tired. And anyways, our head of product gets up there. I think he had a rough night in Vegas. So it was bad. And he's very senior, but I said no, because you could see everyone's face had been drained from the days of Gartner. And if you're not on the ball, you got to cut it out. So I did it. I could have got fired probably. I did it. I said, oh, sorry, we're going to, we're all so tired. Could we switch this to a virtual cab? And they're like, oh, yeah, sure. I'm like, take all the snacks, go home, and I'll follow up. And so on the plane, I was like racking my brain. And I pulled the guy aside and I said, okay, you know what? We'll just talk when we get back. And he goes, you know what? I wanted to go through at least 3 things. I want these 3 answers, because if I don't get this validation, I can't go to market. And I said, he goes, I want, 90 minutes for each one. I go, no, that's, again, we cannot do that. I said, let's do this. Let's write an email, put all 3 and ask them to vote. What are the 3 things that they want to talk about?
Do people not trust their gut anymore? No, I'm just kidding.
No, it's courageous of you to make that decision, knowing that you were heading towards something that was less than optimal. So I hope it worked out.
Better to course correctly.
It could be opposite. If you have a bad cab, it could be quite a big disdain and not trusting of your brand and your company, and work it out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow. Well, get the book. It came out January 24th, available on Amazon. We're here with Irene Yam, author of Build a World-Class Customer Advisory Board, how to create great, deeper opportunities and relationships and validate strategies with your customers. And definitely one of the things that is a best practice here in the Valley for a lot of startups and a lot of established companies. The CAB is one of those things and tools, not necessarily always taught in business school, as you were saying, Vala. It's definitely something that kind of like a craft practice here, just like product management was 20 years ago. Like if you have to take a class, they have classes on product management now, Vala. Can you imagine that?
They do. And our CAB is
making it up on the fly before. So
our CAB is a 2-day in-person event at Salesforce. So
some serious stuff.
Yeah, and it's exceptionally well attended. it shapes our roadmap. So
It does. Yeah.
shapes
Absolutely.
our roadmap.
Thank you, Irene.
Congratulations on the
Thank you
new
so much for
book.
joining us. We'll see you in the
Thank
green room in the back end. So
All right.
Cheers.
Thank you so much for having me. Appreciate it.
Thank you,
Bye.
Irene.
I'm back. I have internet access just when
Yeah, you're good.
Conveniently.
You're good. Yeah,
Oh, man.
well, I mean, Vint and David are so articulate. They
They were
don't
taking
even
so
need.
much bandwidth I couldn't get through. No, I was kidding.
Yeah, exactly. There was the wisdom nuggets were so large, so deep, so insightful. They were eating up bandwidth. Next week's show, we have Jacqueline Carter, co-author of More Human: How the Power of AI Can Transform the Way You Lead. So great leadership book in this times of AI. And then Karen Leland, a branding expert and author of the Branding Mapping Strategy. Design, build, and accelerate your brand. So we're going to talk about leadership in the age of AI and brand mapping strategy next week. Last year, we had 70 authors on the show. The year before, coincidentally, we had 70 authors on the show. And it looks like we're going to have 70 plus authors this year on Disrupt. So if you're an author and you're writing a book that is impactful, often these are best-selling books, this is where you come to learn about it. Ray, your thoughts?
And we're featuring more tech CEOs, so you'll see them. As
And that's the focus area for us this year is best-selling authors and practitioners at the highest level in companies of all sizes. So if you have recommendations, please reach out. You can tag us on DisrupTV on X, and you can reach out to Ray and myself, our world-class producer, Al, and send us your recommendations. We typically booked, I would say, 2 months in advance, but we still have majority of the year ahead of us. So please do that. Ray, your final thoughts on episode 394. We're getting close to 400.
We're getting close to 400. Hey, I think the most important piece is we're about to enter the age of AI, and we have a lot of lessons that we can pick up from the age of the internet. Nothing like having two pioneers, Vint and David Bray, who are pioneering not just the technologies but also the policies that affect humanity and society. I think we got some good glimpse of what we can look forwards to in terms of cooperation in the future, despite what's happening in the deglobalized world. But more importantly, in terms of making sure that people can have access to these technologies, and they have good access to those technologies without having any kind of oppression. I think one of the other pieces is that as we look at startups and we look at where the future is headed, you need good feedback. And customer advisory boards is this interesting craft. I didn't realize that it wasn't being taught anywhere. And it's an interesting craft that is really the heart and soul of companies in terms of being able to take a great idea, run with it, and then continue renewal and build on top of features, requests, ideas, and concepts that only customers might know better than product managers and product. And it's that combination of product strategy, product marketing, that outreach with customers that creates world-class product organizations. So that's kind of a quick summary of the show.
That's better than any large language model could do
For
in
now.
terms of
For now.
recapping. For now.
Organization,
Yeah, for now. Absolutely. Well, if it's Friday, it's Disrupt TV. Thank you for watching. Again, we're getting close to episode 400. We're getting close to 1,400 interviews in the close to 10 years we've been on the air. So really appreciate all of you listening, and we'll see you next Friday. Bye, everyone.